A little confusion to sort out at the top. Getafe for just today was called FECF, or Faith FC in English. The badge was different, the name was different, but Jorge Bordalas' team was the same old tough and rugged opponent from southern Madrid. Getafe hadn't beaten Barca since 2011, though they have been getting closer since Bordalas took over in 2016. I'll be honest, Barca-Getafe was the fourth match I watched today. And if there's one thing that all that football reminded me, it's that matches right after the international break are a mess. Few squads that send half of their team around the world play well, and that was the case all over Europe. Which kind of leads to the first point as why Culés are probably most cranky about this result. Real Madrid fell to Cadiz by a 1-0 scoreline just before Barca kicked off. And this isn't just my bias talking. Barca were not the worst team in pink in La Liga today. Madrid were awful against Cadiz, and that was before Sergio Ramos should have gotten his red card and didn't. They were so bad in the first 45 minutes that Zidane swapped 4 players for the second half, to little effect. Plus, Madrid were the home team. I know that it doesn't make Culés feel any better about their result. It almost makes it feel worse because it feels like a wasted opportunity. But I just want to hammer home the point that the so-called FIFA virus, compounded throughout football by the ramification of the coronavirus, makes this result against Getafe not so surprising. Bordalas went with his 4-4-2 with his disciplined, well-drilled, and fit team. And Koeman, out of necessity of the 7 matches in 23 days in the international break, went with a makeshift lineup with several combinations of players that have never played an actual minute of the Liga action together. Neto, Dest with his first Barca start, Lenglet, Piqué, and Roberto, Busquets and De Jong, as Pjanic was still potentially nursing the back injury he picked up with Bosnia and Herzegovina, then Dembele, Pedri, Griezmann, and Messi. Let's plow through the tired talking points first. For starters, yes, this was a difficult match against a regular top 8 La Liga side, and having your best player on the pitch was important. But in hindsight, having lost the 3 points, having Messi play 90 minutes just days after playing at La Paz in Bolivia at extreme altitude and then flying all the way back to Barcelona just to head to Madrid at the age of 33, what were we expecting from him today? I think he should have come on at halftime, but that's just me. I know that it doesn't happen, but if there is one time that Messi comes on as a substitute, it should be after playing at La Paz. But alas. The other tired talking point is Griezmann. His miss was frustrating, sure, but the player that I just watched with France should have put himself in a position to have 3 or 4 of those attempts today. I usually praise his movement, but it was not good against Getafe. And when Griezmann isn't moving, he could easily be replaced by another player that will. In particular, when Messi was on the right, Griezmann failed to shade to the left to support Dembele or Fati for the few minutes before he came off. And those lack of combinations near Getafe's goal killed Barca on the day. Now for Dembele, he gave the ball away too much. I know people in the comments are going to say, I told you so, he's not good enough, he doesn't have a football brain, and all those tired cliches about Dembele. But I'm going to sit this one out as far as an opinion. He needs to be better to play. No denying that. His favorite trick when on the left wing, bursting about 20 yards, then cutting it back and heading towards the middle on his right foot, it is an awful trick to try against Getafe, who clogged the middle better than grease in a kitchen sink. He was hesitating like a player that hasn't played 3 straight matches in more than 2 years, which is pretty much what he is. But it's not like his teammates were making things easier for him. They were hesitating too. As I mentioned, Griezmann wasn't giving much support at all, and it's not crazy that Dembele and Pedri didn't have much chemistry, since they've never played together. Speaking of Pedri, I do agree with the Culé hive mind this time around that Pedri was Barca's best player. Not very effective in the second half before he came off, but he showed you what he could do in the first half. He puts himself in good position to receive from the double pivots, and he turns on the ball very quickly. His touch looks sharper than almost all of his teammates, and I like that he rewarded Koeman for starting him with quality minutes. Dest was also sharp for the most part, and it's great to see 2 teenagers unafraid of wearing that crest. Not taking it for granted, working hard, but not afraid either. Dest was defensively good enough against a right-sided Getafe that didn't have many intentions of going at him outside the first 20 minutes, when they did try to victimize the American, but he stood his ground and forced Getafe to look elsewhere. Bright spots for sure. Also nice to see Riqui Puig laid on when the game was pure chaos and Barca were looking for a goal. Maybe that appearance means that he could earn some minutes, but we'll have to see about that. There's been some positive and negative, but here comes the real negative part. I thought Busquets was good, and De Jong was much better than before the break, but unfortunately his blatant foul in the penalty box was the difference in the game. Jaime Mata converted the penalty in the one time in the game when Neto couldn't keep it out. I say blatant foul because that was a blatant foul, but not every blatant foul was called in this game. And as far as the blatant fouls in this game, that one wasn't the most blatant. And that's a pretty big understatement. I usually don't say the referee's name because they have an impossible job, especially when you're overseeing an Getafe match, but Cesar Soto Grado was poor. When you referee Getafe, you have to shut down the funny business early, and he failed to do that. And when a referee doesn't do that, Getafe used a savvy strategy that I would sum up as, the referee can't call everything. We may pick up a yellow or two, but a referee cares about the integrity of a match and won't let cards decide the result unless it's something really ugly. And Ousmane took everything he could from this match. I counted 8 times when he should have been warned and 3 yellows that certainly should have been given to the Cameroonian. Other teams will bunker in and be tough in a tackle, but I do give credit to Getafe. They don't bunker in, they trust the quality they have to play 1v1 against the giants of the Liga. It's chippy, it's ugly, but they do toe the line better than any other team in Europe other than Atletico Madrid. Look at the teams in the Champions League and the Europa League. Is there a team not led by Diego Simeone that does this style better? And one of the players that lets this style flourish is Cucurella, who obviously I needed to talk about before we wrap this up. This was one of his better performances. He clearly had something to prove against Barca. It wasn't an all-time showing, but you see what he does well. His pressing affected that match more than anyone else on the pitch. He cut off quite a few passes from the center backs out to the right, and his quick change of speed had Getafe off to the races a number of times. And so comes the calls of why did Barca sell him when he could be the starting left back? Maybe he could have been, but I don't think it would have worked out that way. I think his best position is as a left winger. And who are you starting now, Fati or Cucurella? Alba is still a better 1v1 defender, sorry, he is, and Cucurella would have just been a squad player. And maybe his value would have gone down. I think he was worth more than what he was sold to Getafe for. It's still a bad piece of business by the board, but not for the reasons people are saying it is. If I had to choose between 19-year-old Dest or 22-year-old Cucurella as Alba's backup, I'm going with Dest, just because of what he could do in the future. But if we are getting on the board for signing Firpo instead of keeping Cucurella, if that was ever really an option though, with Cucurella wanting to play and be a starter, then I can see the argument. I'll leave that Cucurella conversation where I leave this match, with a sour taste in my mouth, but ready to move on. Barca will need to move on quickly. It's Champions League on Tuesday, El Clasico next weekend, and Juventus midweek. That also means a lot of content here, including all the match reviews and podcasts that you can handle. So be sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.